Tomorrow is the 1st of May, Lá Bealtaine and Mara, and it is the beginning of summer.
It is the beginning of summer. Now the whole country's been waiting for this turning point. Our next guest has been joining us, of course. He tells us all the time about the traditions and customs of times past. But I think May Day is a very special day. Shane Lahan, great to have you with us. You're looking fabulous, by the way, Shane.
Thanks very much.
Trim and summery.
Waiting for the beautiful new start, tomorrow.
You have wintered well, Shane.
Thanks very
You
much.
certainly have not wintered well. You look very skinny, Malaine. We're jealous.
One of the things is that I've been walking during the COVID period, walking in the mornings,
Yeah.
and my partner Maura gets up early and I go out for a walk, and I've been noticing, and I'm sure you have too, there are flowers absolutely everywhere at the moment. There are beautiful sprays of flowers up in the ditches. There are primroses out and so on.
Wildflowers.
And you think about it. This is Lá Bui Saura, the yellow day, or Lá Bui Bealtaine is the other name for May Day, because yellow flowers in particular, the beautiful primroses, the firs, even the dandelions that are out, all those yellow flowers, people used to gather them in, especially because you were bringing in the summer. This was actually the summer. And into the house, and particularly around the cow house, around the byre, around the windowsills, around the spring well, which they used to wash the butter and so on, because you were bringing in the yellow, you were bringing in the fertility that was there. Yeah. So that was the very first part of the tradition. But it continued on because May was also a time when we brought in the May bush, and that was the Sceach Gal. We were talking about that, Maura. What was interesting about the Sceach Gal is you never brought that into the house, okay? This is my house here. We did it last year. We had the beautiful May bush tradition.
All yellow and glowing and very summery looking.
Isn't it gorgeous? And do you know what was interesting about the white thorn? If people look out now at the moment, they think that the thorn is in bloom, but it's not actually the white thorn. It's the black thorn that's in bloom at the moment, okay? And what happens is that the Sceach Gal, or the hawthorn, as it's called, the May bush, that actually didn't come a little bit later. The reason why it's associated with May Day is because people forgot in 1752 they took 12 days out of the calendar, but nobody told the May bush. The May bush still started to bloom in and around the 12th of May or thereabouts. So if you're looking for blossom tomorrow on the trees, it'll always be the blackthorn.
You've got a beautiful altar. Now, I remember as a child,
exactly what
and we were discussing this.
Yeah,
I remember putting flowers, like I think at the church as kids, and even at home if there was a statue to Mary.
To Mary, like the month of May was dedicated to Mary.
Yeah.
It's actually very interesting why it's dedicated to Mary. It happened in Rome. The seminarians that were in Rome about 1700, the Jesuits, he noticed, the head of the principal of the school out there noticed that the lads were getting a bit frisky, the young lads, and he decided he better divert their attentions to the virginal figure of Mary. So he said, we dedicate the month of May to Mary. So the idea came in then. There were just, in the 19th century, indulgences were there. If you prayed to Mary during the month of May, you could get people out of purgatory and so on. So May, with the month of May, became associated with the Virgin Mary.
Because there was me and the Moira as well in Irish.
See, that's the thing, I remember it being a big thing when I was a kid.
It was huge, and what would happen is that people would set up then the May altar as
and
well.
It was beautiful,
And this was excitement, unbelievable.
And where would this be then, Shane? In the garden?
This was, you had a few grottos outside, that came a bit later, but inside you'd set up a table on the windowsill. Part of the dresser might be cleaned back. You do that. You used to have as well the holy shelf. I don't know if you remember that. Prior to the Sacred Heart, there used to be a little altar, if you like, and Mary would be put up there, okay? But then what happened is that all the children would bring in the beautiful flowers of May.
And then you've got them here, Shane. Look at those.
I was out this morning now picking those, because these are all wildflowers that are available, from the wild garlic.
You even have wild garlic there. Look at that, flowers.
What is it with there?
Even this one, I had no idea what it was. And I got out my phone, with the new app.
Oh, I love that. Google thing.
They told me I was in Guatemala after some obscure thing altogether.
Does that grow near the shore? I've seen that near the shore.
Do you know what's a lovely one? In the water, in the wet areas, you're quite right. So there was all sorts of different ones in different parts. People told me that the peony rose was one that they loved to collect.
It smells beautiful.
When it was out and so on. But the cowslips are there.
What are the purpley ones, Shane, with your Google
ones
thing?
From Guatemala. I have no idea what they are.
Okay. But when you don't know what they're called, just go back to your app.
There's a lovely book I should mention for everyone. I always consult it. It's actually called The Englishman's Flora by a man called Geoffrey Grigson. He'd be the father of Sophie Grigson, the chef and so on. But it's one I have always, and he went through all the British Isles, Ireland. There's every local name. It's a terrific book to have and to look up. But the altar was important because we used to pray the rosary then. That was a big part of May Day. And I was reminiscing with my family there recently about the rosary. And we used to have all this religious material around. But we'd get down on our knees every night during the month of May. We'd have our own rosary beads, of course. And we kind of have fond memories of it because it was great sport. We would start roaring, laughing because we weren't meant to laugh. So after the tea, we'd all lean down on a stool or on a chair or at the back, all facing different directions. And of course, my father would give out the first decade and so on, and then he'd pass on to my mother, and then it would be up to one of us. And the best sport of all was that if you could manage to get in 9 rather than 10 decades of the rosary, everyone would be roaring, laughing. And worse than that, if you were real different, if you put in an extra one, you'd be murdered altogether. You know, that was
crack. But when I count the beads, when the rosary, you'd say, "Gee, did I just count one?"
We all had our own rosary beads, you know. They were
for your communion. It was a big thing.
And your own prayer book and all of that sort of thing. And I was talking to some lads about it and how I'll phrase this, but one of the greatest sports at the rosary was that if you managed to leave off to break wind unknown to the rest of the group, right?
A silent but deadly one.
A silent but deadly one. And you'd
watch.
Boys
are so gross, seriously.
You'd watch about the girls more,
You'd watch for the faces then, you see, and the laughter, and of course my father looking down under his glasses to quieten you down, you know. But listen, no, we were full of that religious fervour, you know. We had chalky gods, as we used to call them, all over the house. The statues, so
the chalk.
So they were everywhere and anywhere, you know, and miraculous medals pinned to our vests.
But that meant so much that time, Shane.
Absolutely.
So simple in one way, you know.
You'd be playing a match and you'd hear a fella jingling behind you to be his miraculous medals.
Coming to our Ireland medals.
And what were those soft things? Scapulars.
The scapulars, yeah.
We were talking about them last week.
We were. I was like, what's the name of those
my
things?
lovely Auntie Mary in Kerry was a great woman for the scapulars, and she used to send them off with us. You had the green scapular, the brown scapular, and if you were very good, you had the red scapular. And you know, you'd have them around your neck, and of course if we threw them off or lost them or whatever, another one would appear and you'd have to be wearing them, you know. So we had all of that amazing paraphernalia, and we loved it. I think people should remember here that I'm speaking now, you know, I'm in my 50s, looking forward to my next COVID jab fairly soon. But I'm kind of the last of the Mohicans. If I talk to people younger than me and my students in their 20s, they have no idea of how incredibly rich and in many ways nostalgic our view of the way we grew up within this religious milieu actually was. I always think as well then at the May altar, you also had what we call the May processions, and this was.
Did you find some footage, or did we find footage of this?
There's incredible footage of it because people would bring in the flowers, okay, and what they would do as well is that here you have this was the Queen of the May.
Is it all girls then? The boys do it?
There was also the boys, but they were kind of kept behind the girls. This was really the heyday. The nuns loved
Was that the communion dresses from last year, probably? Because we wouldn't have done the communion like Corpus Christi around that time, so it'd be June. So that's right, I remember this.
You would pick out, usually the girl from last year, one girl was picked out as the Queen of the May. And she would therefore be crowned the Queen of the May, and they would be a procession. And of course, the nuns were fairly tough. This was their heyday. Now they got kind of giddy with the whole thing. And anyone who was being educated in the convent, one of the things that would happen is that you had to have your head covered. And you might get a mantilla, you know, which was a very fancy covering. But some girls, if whoever made the communion would have the mantilla from the covering from the year before, the veil. Yeah, the veil. But those who had maybe 4 sisters wouldn't have any. Okay, so what happened is they'd be lined up and they'd be given maybe an old bit of the old, you know, an old bit of cloth or an old bit of material, or the neck curtain would be put over. But you had to have your head covered for the May procession. White stockings, looked clean, the whole thing, and they'd be led off. People loved this, and they would sing the whole way. They would have the bells of the Angelus, and of course the most famous.
They were very visual
pieces,
Queen
of the May,
weren't they? I mean, even the kind of, I remember the communion, the processions. Was that June? Was that Corpus Christi? Wasn't it?
Yeah, Corpus Christi.
We always used to do that.
The May procession was often the first Sunday in May, or else it was during the school year, and it was a major event.
When you finish up, Shane,
I was interviewing one of my students was doing
yeah.
some work for me, Christine Burke, and she was recording it down in Ahada in the 1970s. It was still very
Yeah, I bet it went to I'd say probably
Yeah.
late
I've only seen
70s.
that now on some like reeling in the years, but I
Yeah,
haven't
yeah.
I haven't seen it
Oh,
in real life.
the May processions were huge. It was the big, and as I said, it was the most exciting day of the year for so many, and everyone would be a part of it. I often think, just thinking back of how religious we were in the past. What my brother, I remember once my brother Barry, we had the miraculous medals, and one day my mother was putting on his vest, and she was in a hurry, and he used to be on a safety pin, and unknown to him, didn't she pierce him through? And Barry was always a happy kind of fellow with a smiling face, but all day long. And she was saying,
Are you actually went through a skin?
yeah, what's wrong with you? She was saying, look at you, will you ever cheer up? You know, and he used to be looking at her with this sad face.
And he
then,
didn't
of course,
say anything?
when she went off, no, that was Barry, he was quiet.
I'm actually going to fall off the
When
chair.
she went to take off his vest that night, she was
Oh,
tugging
stop.
up, and
Oh.
she realised that he
Shane,
put it on.
this is
you know?
crazy. It's like a Padre Pio story. I can't take this.
This is the
The
stigma.
child said nothing for the whole day.
No, he was very good. He was very, very, very devout altogether. You know?
So I don't think I can
He
actually
didn't
speak.
leave a roar off or anything.
No. So I often think that, you know, we had holy water fonts everywhere when we were going out. We were giving blessings. Everyone, this was normal. This was every
But
day.
I don't think it was. I think we need to say, like, I remember those religious kind of ceremonial things. I didn't feel that there was in any way oppressive, right? It was actually kind of good
Fun,
fun. It was
yeah.
kind of a
You're going into
crack
the
thing.
summer.
Seriously, as you say, no, it was like
It was
what we're
part. It was
discussing.
part of what we did, and
Yes.
you know, and people. I often think about the rosary is a kind of a mantra. It's a time out.
Yeah.
Whatever
Yeah.
your
An
sense of
on
things.
thing.
And you know,
Yeah.
people said the rosary in Ireland every day of the year, sometimes twice a day. There was no television, lads,
No.
and sometimes you just break the monotony.
There was something to
We'd
do,
say,
like-
we'd say
That's
the
just a
rosary.
good way
Yeah.
of
Or
looking
milking the
at
cows.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it is like, say, for example, say if there was two young fellas fighting inside, and if they're stuck inside all day fighting, and all of a sudden they're saying the rosary break, as you said there, it breaks that. Then all of a sudden it goes back to normal again for a while after.
There was a great rosary. The Marian year was 1954, and that was the year that Pope Pius XII decreed that everyone should maybe have a little altar, an outside grotto, if you like, continuing that
Was
sort
that
of
how it
tradition.
started? Okay.
And everyone that year was named Mary. Even boys were named Mary that year. You
Yeah.
have often have Patrick, Mary, whatever.
It wasn't
in
John Wayne, wasn't he Marion?
He was.
He was. That's Mary as well,
But I
actually,
know
yeah.
fellas who was Patrick Mary, say,
you?
or whatever. Yeah.
And with that year, 1954, there was a fellow called Father Patrick Peyton. He was a Mayo priest. He went to America. He got TB, and then he was miraculously cured. And he started. He was like a figure out of Father Tate. He was called the Rosary Priest, and he was a superstar
And
of
he
his
went
day.
around America and all that. I remember hearing about this guy
Around
before.
America, and he was
Yeah.
on the movie tone news before you watch it in the cinema. And he was the guy invited to Ireland in 1954 on a crusade. The family that prays together stays together.
That was the line.
That
That was the motto.
Good line.
And he came around. There were 500,000 people went off to his rallies all around Ireland in
God.
1954, and the rosary was absolutely everywhere.
Did he also tell you to put your phone on silent? He didn't, I suppose.
But I remember talking about this guy before with somebody,
Yeah.
and he was, as you said, he was like a superstar.
He was,
He
yeah.
was almost like a rock star. Shane, thanks so much.
Shane,
We can chat
Gurmeda.
to you all day. Thanks so much
Happy
for bringing
May
in
Day.
these beautiful
Thank you very much.
logos, a gorgeous altar, and also those lovely flowers that I
I love
run
the
out
colour.
and start gathering
But you can
ourselves.
see when they brought them into the house and in and around the
Beautiful.
house, just lit up the whole place. Anyway, still to come, speaking of houses, Brendan Court